Hello and welcome back. Let's see how you did on Wednesday's question. Now remember, part of what we're doing this year is we're trying to decipher calculus as a language. And again, I like it so much that I actually call mathematics and calculus the language of love. So a big part of what we're doing is trying to figure out where to start the problem by knowing what the words mean in each of these problems. And that's called finding the key word. So in this first example tonight, what we're going to do is we're going to find the key word. So let's take a look. Find the equation of the line parallel to 5x plus 8y equals 7. Knowing that it contains the point where f of x equals 3x minus 4 and g of x equals 2x plus 5 intersect. So our job to start is to find out what that keyword is going to be in this problem. Here, we've got a very familiar keyword in calculus. We're going to see all throughout the year. Find the equation of a line. That is where we've got to start. So you may remember from algebra, you spent a lot of time talking about lines, and you probably talked a lot about slope-intercept form, or y equals mx plus b. Now, that's what most people used in algebra. But now that we're in calculus, what we really want to do is we want to introduce the idea of the point-slope form. And that's usually given by y minus y1 equals m times the quantity of x minus x1. Now, that's point-slope form. The way I want you to say if you're working with me, and this is what I want you to do, I want you to really say it every single time it comes up. The way we're going to say that point-slope form is y minus blank equals blank times x minus blank. Okay? What I want to do is I want to give you the steps so that you make every problem into kind of a template that you're going to know how to do. And the only question is, how do you fill it in? So again, every time you hear find the equation of a line, don't even hesitate. Say it like you mean it. Y minus blank equals blank times x minus blank. And that's going to be your template, and that's where you're going to start. So again, this is called the point-slope form. And the reason it's called the point-slope form is very simple. In order to use it, you've got to know a point and you got to know a slope. So right here and here, that's going to be the point that you're going to use. Okay, the y value goes in that first blank, y minus the y value. The x value is going to go in that last blank, x minus that x value. Now the blank in the middle, that's where your slope is going to go. So now, until the end of the year in the AP exam, every time you see find the equation of a line, you know your job is to find that point and that slope. And somewhere in the problem, they're going to give you the information you need to find those things, okay? They're always going to give you everything you need. So again, find the equation of a line. Let's find the point. Let's find the slope. So let's go back, let's read a little more, and let's see if we can decipher the language of love in this one to find out how we're going to find the point and how we're going to find the slope. So going back to that, we already know the find the equation of a line. Remember, let me hear you say it. Y minus blank equals blank times x minus blank. And now what we're looking for is how do we find the point and how do we find the slope? So as we keep reading this, the next thing that I come across that I think is going to be important and significant is this word right here, parallel. Parallel is a key word in calculus. It means that the slopes will be equal. So what they're telling us is that we're parallel to this line right here, 5x plus 8y equals 7. So that means if I can find the slope of this line, I know the slope of my line because they are indeed parallel. So what we've got to do is we've got to find the slope of 5x plus 8y equals 7. We got to hijack that slope and put it into our equation. So let's come down here. Remember, here's our point slope form. Again, y minus blank equals blank times x minus blank. Every single time. We've now got to find the slope of our parallel line because our slopes will be equal. So here's where slope-intercept form is going to come in big. Okay, we're going to rearrange this. We're going to solve this for y, and by doing so, we're going to be able to find the slope. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to subtract 5x from both sides. Doing that isolates the 8y, so we're going to get 7 minus 5x. Our next step, get that y alone. Divide both sides by 8. So if I divide this entire side by 8, what I end up with is 7 minus 5x in the numerator and 8 in the denominator. Now, you're going to see this often throughout this year. We're going to use something that I refer to as split the fraction. And split the fraction basically means we've got terms in the numerator, and I want those terms to be written with the same common denominator. So what I can do is I can say this is really one term, two terms. It means it's going to turn into two fractions. Each of them will have that common denominator of 8. So they're going to be subtracted. Common denominator of 8. So in the first numerator, I'm going to have a 7. And in the second numerator, I'm going to have a 5x. From here, we've now got our our slope-intercept form. We can identify the slope. The slope is written right here. It's the coefficient of the x. So our slope is, in fact, that negative 5/8. So since our lines are parallel, we can take that negative 5/8 and we can insert that where we're going to use the slope. One blank down, two blanks to go. Now our job is to find that point. Now, there's got to be a way to find it. Let's go back. Let's read the question again, and let's find another key word that can lead us to that. So now as we keep going, we've used this part right here parallel to that line. But here we go. Contains the point. So they're foreshadowing that we're going to get the point. And they're telling us it's the point where f of x equals 3x minus 4 and g of x equals 2x plus 5. It's where these two guys intersect. So next key word right here, the key word intersect. We've got to find out what that keyword intersect means and use that to our advantage to find that point. All right, we've got the slope. Now we need to find that point. The key word here is intersect. So remember, when we're talking about intersect, this is the place where two functions basically cross on a graph. If they're crossing, they're sharing the same point. If they're sharing the same point, that means their x values are the same and their y values are the same. So the key here is to understand that they have the same y value. Now, how do we take that phrase in English and change it to mathematics? Remember, the language of love, mathematics. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus on that word same. The word same is going to be equals. And now what are the y values for these two functions? Well, the first y value is denoted by f of x. Remember, f of x is the same as y. That's the output for the first function. The second y value is given by g of x. So what we know now is that every time we see this keyword intersect, we want to follow it up with f of x equals g of x. That's the way we're going to set the equation. So in this problem, that means that 3x minus 4 is equal to 2x plus 5. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take and solve this equation for x by subtracting 2x from both sides, which will give me x on the on the left-hand side, and then we're going to add 4 to both sides to get rid of that negative 4. And we're going to find out that x equals 9. Once we know that, all we've got to do is find that y value. Remember, these functions intersect, they're at the same point. I can actually use either f of x or g of x to find the y value. I'm going to go ahead and use f of x, and I'm going to do what we talked about in the last video. I'm going to make placeholders, which I'm calling something. F of something is equal to 3 times something minus 4. We found the x value to be 9. Let's go back and substitute that in. When we do, we find out that we've got 27 minus 4, and that's equal to 23. So what this tells us is that the point of intersection is x equals 9 and y equals 23. Now remember, we're building the equation of a line, and we all know what to think when we hear that equation of a line. We're all going to say y minus blank equals blank times x minus blank. From earlier in the problem, we found the slope. We know that it's negative 5/8. Now all we had to do is get the point. Well, that's where the intersect came in. We found the point. So remember, our y value goes in the first blank. Our x value goes in the last blank. So we found our x value to be 9. So we're going to take this x value and we're literally just going to write it into that last blank. And the output was 23. So that y value is 23. We're going to go and write that in our first blank. So what we've got here is our equation of the line. This is the answer that we want to give. They didn't ask for it in any specific form. So what we want to do is just give this answer and get out as fast as we can. So by giving this answer, we can move on to the next problem and be confident that we're going to get full credit. Now, a lot of you guys have been told that you want to make this the y equals mx plus b form. Don't do it. You're trying to earn extra credit that the AP exam is not offering. All that can happen is you can make a mistake, and if you make that mistake, you're going to end up losing a point. We've got our points right now. Let's put them in the bank. Let's move on to that next problem, and let's collect all the points that we deserve. The last thing we want to talk about before we end today is just review our keywords for this evening. The first keyword, equation of a line. Now, you all know what that means. Every time you hear equation of a line, you're going to say y minus blank equals blank times x minus blank. The next keyword for tonight was parallel. Anytime two things are parallel, it means their slopes are equal. Our notation for that today is m1 equals m2. As we learn more and more calculus, we're going to get some better notation. That's going to change in the future. But for now, it's m1 equals m2. The two slopes are equal. And then our last key word today is intersect. Intersect means the two functions cross. They'll have the same point. Specifically, their y values will be equal. I hope you guys got a lot out of tonight's video. I've had a lot of fun working with you. Remember, I'm not afraid of the exam. The exam's afraid of me. See you next time.